the devil is on the loose and he's dancing with the mummy.
Here we go. This is almost the last torture movie here for Horror Month. And I'm talking about another mummy movie, and this is The Mummy's Curse. Now, if you've watched up until this point, all of our reviews, you know how much we really don't care about The Mummy, because all these movies have been they've been pretty stupid.
All of the movies have had exactly the same exact plot. There's nothing different except where they are and what they're doing.
You're right, Professor So-and-so, because in this one, they're digging a hole.
Also, if you watched the last Mummy movie, they did something before the House of Frankenstein did it. Is they walked into the swamp and died in the swamp. And this one picks up where 25 years later, they're digging up the swamp.
Also, Professor So-and-so, they're draining the swamp.
They're working out there in the swamp. Why?
They're draining the swamp.
They're draining the swamp.
They're in the swamp. They got bulldozers and all kinds of stuff out there in the swamp.
They're draining the swamp.
Draining the swamp.
They're draining the swamp.
Find a lizard on a grave. Take no chance your life will save.
Exactly. Those lines came from Gooby, and Gooby was probably my favorite character in the whole movie. He was great. I would have loved just to see a movie with just Gooby in it, like Gooby versus the Mummy. That should have been the next one. That would have been a hit, actually.
Got a question for you. Is Gooby in any of the Abbott and Costello movies? Because I think he'd be a good addition.
I don't know, but he was great in this.
He just showed up 25 years later.
He did, and he almost saved this movie. Almost, but the movie was still pretty terrible. I mean, it was... Actually, I'm going to go out and just say this. I personally think it's probably the worst one.
Okay, that's a good assessment.
I mean, there've been bad ones, but this was bad. I mean, this was really bad.
There was so many plot holes in this movie. And I'm not talking about like grave plots, like plots in a cemetery. I'm talking there were so many holes in this film, it could have been Swiss cheese.
You're talking about the big hole that they dug in the swamp, right?
That's when they drained the swamp, yes.
Yeah, and then they find the hole of where the mummy was buried, and apparently, when you die in the swamp, nothing happens to you if you're wrapped up.
Also, you mysteriously have sarcophaguses waiting for you to be put into as well.
I think they probably just took him, unwrapped him real quick, threw the wraps in a wash, cleaned him up real quick, dried him, wrapped him back up, and threw him in the coffin. But they just didn't show that part.
They didn't clean him up because he still had mold on him.
That's true. And also, the woman who wasn't wrapped up at all was just muddy, and she just got water and washed off, and then her hair was done, and she had makeup on, and her dress was basically pretty clean except for a couple spots, and she had nice shoes on, and she cleaned up really well.
Yeah, she walked through the water of the swamp and then came out all clean. Like in a silk dress. It was amazing.
Magic rejuvenating swamp water.
Now, when they said that the mummy was in the swamp and they were digging him up, my vision was, oh man, they're going to do something really cool with the mummy now. He's going to be all rotted, and he's going to have more mold on him. He may be more skeletal looking. And no, none of that cool stuff was in this movie.
He wasn't even muddy.
Nope, he was pretty well dried out.
And his arm, his leg, still busted.
Yep, he's still doing the limp and he's pulling the leg, but his body count in here was pretty impressive. I mean, he was taking them down one by one. I don't know how, but he was.
I thought it was hilarious when they showed his footprints and it was just the shape of a foot and then a big long drag mark and then the shape of a foot and a big long drag mark. It's like, yep, that's the mummy.
Yep, that's him.
Those are his tracks. I know them anywhere.
As you said, the plot here is exactly the same, except now there's a woman mummy here, which I thought was going to be a pretty interesting twist. And I actually liked the actress. I thought she was okay who played the character. But no, it was exactly the same. Exactly the same.
The plot is they have to resurrect Karis, which is a different mummy, by the way, because the original mummy was Imhotep. So this second mummy of Karis is what has been through these last 5 films, and in the last 5 films he has to be resurrected to find his bride, and then once they find the bride, they can take him back to Egypt.
Don't leave out the most important part here, Professor.
Tana leaves.
Let Spookarella explain what a Tanis leaf is.
It's a fictional leaf that has no basis in reality, and if you put it in a thing and cook it over fire, 3 of them.
Only 3. Only 3.
3 starts him up.
3 just keeps you going. That just helps you maintain.
It's like pulling a lawnmower out of the shit that's been in there all winter, and you pull that string and it is trying to start, and you know it's trying to start. That's 3 Tana leaves.
When you really want to get going, then 9 leaves. But only 9.
I'm thinking to myself, if they gave him 10, maybe they would have fixed his messed up leg. Maybe.
Entirely possible.
However, they did do one thing different. Instead of anointing another person to go and cook the leaves and boil the leaves for the mummy, they skipped that whole part, didn't give him the medallion. He already had the medallion, so since he already had the medallion, he had to explain the story of the mummy from the beginning.
And also, he brought on a leaf buddy. He brought on a junior leafman to serve as a plot device so that he would have an excuse to show the entire flashback telling the story of the mummy and the princess and the leaves.
Yeah, I mean, it was terrible. It was terrible from beginning to end. I mean, Gooby couldn't even save this movie, and he tried. I mean, he really did try.
Gooby is the peanuts of this movie.
So, overall, I'm going to say this is probably the worst Mummy, and that's probably why this is almost a second to the last film. I guess it is the actual last Mummy movie. There's no more Mummy movies after this. Because the next one is actually Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, so this is probably the last one. And being that it was so bad, I don't think they could just possibly make any more. So for me, this one gets a 1 out of 5.
However, eventually they did make a new mummy with Brendan Fraser. Eventually they made those movies, but until they made those movies, I think this was the last one, like Dave said. So I would also give this movie a 1 out of 5. It stunk.
I'm gonna give 1 Tana leaf out of 5. Big ups to Gooby, and I swear to Christ, if there's Tana leaves and Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, I'm gonna flip my wig.
Yeah, let's do that one.
No.
So that's it. That's the end of the Mummy, hopefully, for now anyway. And until they find more Tanis leaves, you know, that's it for the show for tonight. But that's not the end of the frights that are and the screams that are coming tonight, because as we've been doing it all month long, Dave and Becky are live screaming video games, all really spooky horror games.
Live stream.
And they've been doing it all month long. So tune in later tonight around 7, 8 o'clock. I don't know when they're doing it, and watch the live scream of the
Tana leaves.
Tana leaves. And until then, stay spooky.